Interest rates are up higher than they have been in a very long time, which is making a lot of buyers here in DFW very nervous, and making some people even decide to wait and sit down on the sidelines instead of buying a house right now. Even though right now is actually a much better time to buy than it was earlier in the year. In this video, I'm going to go over the pros and cons of buying in today's real estate market here in DFW. Hey everyone, I'm Kiel Lindsey, your property geek, and I'm a local realtor here in DFW. The housing market has changed dramatically from the beginning of the year, and it's causing a lot of confusion. Some misinformation is out there. So I want to give you some insights on what you should really be thinking about to make the most out of this market if you're thinking about buying soon. So I'm going to talk about the 5 pros and 5 cons about buying in today's real estate market here in DFW. Okay, to kick things off, I'm going to talk about the 5 cons to purchasing a home in today's real estate market. So con number 1, which is pretty obvious, is the interest rates. They are high. They're very high. There's a lot of people saying, oh, historically, back in the 70s, it was 17, 12%, whatever. They're very high. They haven't been this high since the early 2000s. So we're talking almost 20 years since we've seen interest rates this high. So I get it. I can completely understand not wanting to buy a house right now. That has obviously dramatically lowered a lot of buyers' buying power. And when we say that, what does that really mean? Well, if you were to have looked at your desired payment from earlier in the year and versus now, that for a lot of people is now $25,000, $50,000, even $75,000 less on your typical home here in DFW. If you're looking in the higher price ranges, that could be even dramatically lower. So anyway, moving on. Con number 2 is home prices are still up. Well, they're dropping a little bit, but they are not dropping with how fast people's buying power has dropped. So, meaning you are still in a slightly inflated market for the home prices with interest rates very high. That can really reduce affordability here. So I think I read a stat the other day that only about 25% of first-time home buyers could actually qualify for a mortgage for your average home here in DFW. Now, DFW is a very big place, meaning that the home prices on one side of DFW are not going to be the same for the other. In fact, Fort Worth is a lot more affordable than Dallas or Frisco. So depending on where you look or where you're looking is kind of going to depend on what you can afford there. Of course, obviously, the biggest factor there is your income, but that's between you and the mortgage broker. Con number 3, homes are taking longer to sell right now. So we are seeing the shift from a seller's market to a buyer's market. Technically, it is still a seller's market when you look at just the raw data, but it doesn't feel that way. So when you don't price your home correctly or present it correctly, it could sit 60, 90 days. We're even seeing some homes approaching 6 months right now, that it creates a little bit of a negative stigma around the house, and it makes it harder to sell the longer it sits, even though there's probably nothing wrong with the house. So what does this mean for you as a buyer, and why is that a con for a buyer? Well, this means you really need to be able to stay in that home. I would recommend at least 3 years. The golden rule is about 5 years. And what that means is that if you cannot stay at least 5 years, that means when you go to sell the house, you may not have made enough money on the house to cover your selling costs. Because yes, there's cost to sell. And so you may actually lose money on that house. It may not be a good investment if you can't stay long enough. Now, I think 3 is probably going to be okay. But like I said, really you should be planning for 5. So if you don't think you can stay at least 5 years, now may not be the best time to buy. It may be time to think of a better form of investment. And by staying 5 years, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to sell or live in it the whole 5 years, but maybe you turn that house into an investment property. That could be a very good way to buy now while, because we're going to the pros earlier. There are pros to buying now. But that can be a great way for you to get into the house now, live in it for a couple of years, and then maybe if you have to move for some reason, you can hold on to it and turn it into a rental for the next couple of years so you don't lose money on the house. Now, each situation is a little different, and if you are curious about that possibility, I'd love to discuss it with you. Con number 4 sellers are still being stubborn. So what does this mean? What we're seeing right now, people are calling a sticky price phenomenon, meaning sellers are being very reluctant to lower their prices to match the demand. So kind of like I said earlier, buying power has been drastically reduced with the interest rates, but the home prices from earlier in the year, where everything was escalating very quickly, are still high. Sellers, and I'm not saying anything negative about these people. It's human nature. When you think you're going to get a certain price or level for your house, and then you're told it's not going to be that, it's going to be lower, well, you feel like you've lost something, when in fact, you haven't really lost anything because you never had it. It was always just market speculation, if that makes sense. You don't really know what your house is going to sell for until you actually go to sell it. Now, what does that mean for you as the buyer? It means that some people are not lowering their price quick enough to match buying power, because if someone has, say, for example, we're just saying the average home in DFW right now is a 3 or 4 bedroom, a little over 2,000 square feet. Your average household income should be able to match up with the average house. Well, when the average income cannot afford the average house, you have a little bit of a price discrepancy, and either the income has to come up, which we know employers aren't doing very quickly, or those prices need to come back down. And that's what the market's kind of trying to adjust and see, but it's just the prices aren't coming down as quickly, I think, as most buyers would like. So it's creating what we like to call, like I said earlier, the sticky price phenomenon, and the prices aren't coming down quick enough. So all that being said is that it may take a little bit more work to get a seller to come down to where you are, but the good news there is that they are bending, and they are making those deals, especially the longer it sits in the market. So we'll get into those pros here in a second. Con number 5, because of the interest rates, it may actually still be cheaper for you to rent. So you're saying, why should I buy? If my payment on the same size or quality house, mortgage-wise, is going to be a couple hundred, so maybe possibly even $1,000 more than my rental amount, why on earth would I spend that extra money, when my budget is already tight? Well, that's a really good objection. And it may not be the best time for you to buy if that's the case. If what your predicted mortgage payment would be might be a lot more than your rental amount, well, something to really think about. But I would caution you, because one of the benefits of homeownership is building equity and not paying someone else's mortgage. So I would caution you, if you look at that and you say, okay, well, if my payment would have been this high, but my rental is here, take that money in the middle as much as you can afford and invest that money somewhere. I know right now there's not a lot of great investments out there, but even if it is just throwing it into a savings account for now and holding on to that cash and building up a bigger down payment for later, you will thank yourself later. Don't just take that extra money you might have spent and adjust your lifestyle up. This is the time, if you're wanting to buy soon, but you don't want to pay these interest rates, now is a great time to be socking away extra money for the purchase and the down payment. Okay, so there's your 5 cons, and I know that paints a little bit of a bleak picture, which is why I want to do the 5 pros last. And so stick with me, because these are pretty good, and there are a lot of great reasons why you should be buying right now if it's the right time for you. Pro number 1 is that prices are coming down in a lot of areas. Prices are coming down in a lot of areas here in DFW. Now, I know earlier I was just talking about the sticky price phenomenon, and that is true. But overall, we are seeing a reduction in price. The median price over DFW has dropped almost 20 grand over the last 4 months. So that is a large price reduction overall, meaning that yes, interest rates are up and affordability is down. We are seeing a lot of houses with big price reductions, and sellers being more negotiable to make those price reductions. So this is a big benefit to buyers who earlier in the year had to look at a list price and think to themselves, well, how much over that list price can I afford? Can I afford $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 over that list price? Well, now buyers are getting these homes for at list price or much lower, which is a much less stressful situation, and in my opinion, a much better situation for pretty much every buyer out there. Keep in mind, the mortgage rate is not forever. So yes, the house and the payment, if you can afford it now, even if it stretches your budget, that's great because interest rates will not stay this high forever. Meaning if you find the right mortgage lender, like the one that I like to recommend who has no cost refinances, hint, hint, you could get into this payment, which is a little higher now, hold on to it for a year, hopefully no more than a year or maybe two, and then refi down to a much better payment when the mortgage rates drop. Pro number 2, incentives are readily available for buyers right now. What does that mean? Well, when you're looking at a new build earlier in the year, you were standing in line or praying with the lottery system that you would even get the ability to sign a contract in the house. And then when you got that contract, guess what? They were offering almost no incentives and no extra benefits for buying that new construction other than you had the privilege of buying one of their brand new homes. Well, now builders are throwing incentives at buyers everywhere. I've seen some offering almost up to $40,000 in upgrades to the house or buy downs for their rates or kickbacks to closing costs. You name it, builders are wheeling and dealing right now. They want your business, and you can make a great deal in a new build in today's current market here in DFW. If you're curious about new construction, I still think that is one of the best ways to buy a house, especially if you have one to sell. Hit me up. I know a lot of builders here, not just big production builders, but some custom builders where you can get a half-acre, acre lot, beautiful home. And like I said, they're giving you tons of incentives, especially maybe to buy that rate down so that you don't have to have these huge payments once you get into the house. Pro number 3 is that you have a lot more options available to you as a buyer right now. Inventory is very high. So earlier in the year, March, April, we were around 13,000 homes for sale on the market here in DFW. Now, that sounds like a lot. Like, man, that's a lot of homes. Well, now we are up to over 28,000 homes on the market. We more than doubled our inventory. So for a buyer, you have a lot more choices. And just because a home hits the market does not mean you need to jump on it immediately. So you don't have to have as much urgency to make a decision right away, offer over the asking price, or maybe settle on a house that wasn't perfect for you because that's all that was available in the area you were looking. As we are, as buyers, very area location dependent. You want to be close to work or in the right school district. So when a house would come available earlier in the year, even if it didn't fit all of your wants or your needs, people were buying it because they needed a place. Well, now you have a lot more options, and that is a huge pro for buyers. So combine more options with more flexibility from sellers and a lot more incentives or price reductions. And you see where I'm going with this. This could be a very good time for you as a buyer if you can afford those payments. Pro number 4, and this is more of a general pro to buying a house. So in the last, one of the cons was, well, your rent may be cheaper than your mortgage payment. Well, if those two numbers are close, or hopefully your mortgage payment would actually be better, one of the biggest pros is you build wealth through your equity over time when you purchase a house. That is by far one of the best reasons to buy a house, even if it costs you an additional couple $100s a month over renting, is you are paying down your own equity. And as the price of that home appreciates, you build wealth. Owning your own home is the #1 wealth builder for families across America right now. So by purchasing the home, you are kickstarting your wealth building big time. Maybe you're only going to stay in this house 4 or 5 years. Hopefully it's at least 4 or 5. But when you go to sell and move again, now you have a big chunk of money because you've been paying down your mortgage and the price has been appreciating. Even if it's slowly, you will appreciate and gain much more money from that than you would have ever from just saving that extra money over rental. And if you're curious about that, I have some other videos on why buying a house is one of the best wealth builders. So go ahead and look for that in my YouTube channel. But rest assured that buying the house is one of the best decisions you can make for your financial future. And I fully believe that, not just because I'm a realtor. Obviously, I own my own home, and most of the people, when you look at how they build wealth, all own real estate. Pro number 5, Owning your own home helps build stability. You are no longer under the control of a landlord who's someone else who owns the house. Yeah, your insurance is going to go up every year. Yes, your taxes are going to go up every year. So your payment will go up every year, but you are in control of that increase. You can shop around for that. You can change insurance companies. You could refi the mortgage. Which I would recommend if you get with a 6 or 7% interest rate, refi later when they drop. But that P&I payment, your principal and interest, it never changes unless you refinance. And that stability, plus the fact that no one can tell you have to leave, well, unless you don't pay and then they foreclose on you, but you know what I mean? You are in control and you have stability. You've picked your school district, you've picked your neighborhood, you've purchased the house. You can paint the house whatever color you want. You can make it your own. And there is no better feeling than unlocking your own front door for the first time and walking in and knowing that that house is yours. The stability and the comfort that creates, it can't really be expressed in words. It is a fantastic feeling. And not to mention, from the fourth pro, you are building wealth for your financial future and hopefully helping your family really move forward. So if you found any of that information useful, please hit the like button. And if you're interested in my other series about buying and tips for buying, please hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified next time I release a video. As you can see, there is a lot of cons and a lot of pros to buying a house in today's real estate market here in DFW. Hopefully this sheds a little bit of light on that. Buying a house right now isn't for everyone, trust me. There's plenty of people I know that are waiting right now, but there are a lot of people that it is a good time for. We've gone through, we've done a strategy session, we've looked at their finances, assessed their purchasing power, came up with a plan. And man, we are making great deals for our buyers right now. So if you are even curious if this could be a good time for you, or you're thinking about buying a home, maybe not even now through the holidays, but maybe earlier next year in 2023, now would be a great time to start planning for that. My contact information will be below. So please schedule a call, reach out to me, however you're comfortable, email, and let's get something scheduled so we can talk about helping you build your financial future through real estate. Thanks and have a great day.